The RTX 2080 Super, launched back in 2019 of July, was met with a really mediocre reception at best, with a price point of $699. However, fast forward nearly 4 years later, you can now get this graphics card on the used market for around $200, and if you're searching hard enough, you can even get it under those prices. Though, how does this thing perform at those used prices versus, say, the RTX 4060, which is NVIDIA's latest and greatest 299 graphics card with the same amount of VRAM? Let's find out after this sponsor spot.
Never pay full price for Windows 10 or 11 again. With today's video sponsor, SCD Keys, you can get activated for as little as $15 using that coupon BFTYC. Links in the description below.
Welcome back to Tech Yes City, and let's get straight into those 1440p gaming numbers, where the RTX 2080 Super absolutely tears up the charts here. And I decided to start off with 1440p numbers because I recently checked the prices of 1440p monitors, and they are extremely cheap, even brand new, for high refresh rate panels with IPS. And if you want to go VA, you can even save a bit more money, but the prices of 1440p monitors have come down so much, and this card, it excels at 1440p, at least compared to the cards that are brand new that cost either a little bit more or are coming in at a similar price point. So at $200, the RTX 2080 Super is starting to make a lot of sense if you want to go with, say, a budget 1440p gaming monitor. Now, we'll quickly run through the 1080p numbers, and here's where it kind of goes back in favor of the lower bandwidth cards. But one thing to notice here is that the 2080 Super is still doing extremely well at 1080p, just like it's doing at 1440p. Now, the good thing is, being a RTX card, it does have DLSS 2 support, and I actually think that's more important than the ray tracing itself, where we can pull up some benchmarks here with F1 2022, where we've got ray tracing on, and then if we put DLSS 2 on, we end up getting actually a playable experience with these settings, and this happens in Cyberpunk as well. So those gaming numbers show that the RTX 2080 Super, at least if you're looking for raw rasterization with a bit of options included in, with, say, you want to turn on DLSS 2, drop some settings down to get a really high FPS frame rate, it does really well. However, its power consumption would be considered its Achilles heel, except this is where you can undervolt the card extremely well. Now, you guys hear me talk about undervolting, and I talk about this quite a lot, but today I'm going to make a bit of a different analogy with it. What we've got here is 3 critical factors when it comes to a GPU. We've got GPU temperatures, we've got GPU power consumption, and then we've got our FPS. And so what we're seeing with undervolting is 2 of those critical factors we are reducing when we undervolt quite significantly, that being the temperatures and the power consumption. However, the FPS is remaining virtually identical. So this is like going to, say, TGI Fridays, ordering the cheeseburger, getting the vanilla milkshake on top, but not getting all the calories, so you don't feel as bloated after the meal, or the next day you're still feeling like you had a meal with a lot of veggies in it. So when it does come to undervolting your GPU, you should definitely be doing it, but even when we compare it in a chart here versus the RTX 4060, what we're seeing here is that it does benefit more from undervolting than the new RTX 40 series cards around this price point do. In case of the 4060, it dropped by a little bit, but in case of the 2080 Super, it dropped significantly. But also the 30 series, just like the 20 series, does benefit greatly from undervolting, as does AMD's RX 6000 series and 7000 series cards. So what we saw there was nothing short of not just phenomenal performance, but also phenomenal performance for the dollar when we look at the used price performance and what it can bring. However, it is off the used market, and that can be a deterring factor for a lot of people. But me personally, I recommend buying off the used market whenever you can. You're going to be getting the best deals, but also there are some things to be aware of. Now, the biggest thing for me is I always buy in a situation, whether it's locally or online, where I've got some sort of recourse. That is, I can get the card, and if it doesn't work straight up, I can return it, get my money back, or in this case of a used graphics card, if it's not performing out of the box that well, I would also be quite concerned. For instance, if I took the memory slider, and this is the biggest one for me personally, if I took that memory slider and I increased it just a little bit and the card crashed out with MSI Afterburner, which is essentially a GPU tuning utility, I would be looking to get my money back too. That means the card was mined on heavily by a cryptocurrency miner, and in that case, they may not have tuned the card properly, and it may have been running too hot, and so it might only have a few months left of life. Though if you tune up the GPU core clock, which in this case, this one said in the ad description that it wasn't mined on at all, the memory clocks went over 1,000, so that does mean that the seller, in my opinion, was telling the truth. However, the GPU core clock only went up around 50 megahertz on this card before it crashed out. Now, this could be a problem depending on what type of card it is. This is an overclock card, so out of the box, it's already running close to 2 gigahertz core clock. Basically, the OC means it's an overclocked edition out of the box, so it's running higher core clocks than an RTX 2080 Super usually would. And so it's actually coming quite close to 2 gigahertz. So adding that 50 megahertz on, we do get a little bit more, but then after that, it pretty much reaches the peak that an RTX 2080 Super on air would reach anyway. So when we undervolt, we actually gain a lot more benefits off OC models. Also on top of that, I don't have to sweat about this GPU causing me any issues for what I believe will work for another good couple of years. Especially if I sell this to someone, I'm gonna recommend that they undervolt it and run it at undervolted settings full time. Though of course, with any used GPU, if you're looking at this card in my hand, you're probably thinking, Brian, it looks like it's in really good condition, but that was after I cleaned it up with what I like to call here at Tech Yes City some tech yes loving. Taking this card apart with a screwdriver and then cleaning off the old thermal paste showed that it wasn't too bad. And the actual pads that were on the VRAM and the memory, they were pretty much like they were day one, meaning that if you get an RTX 2080 Super, you may be in for a similar experience, meaning that you can just change the thermal paste, give it a quick clean, and you should be good to go with a card that functions like new. In this case, it took me a whole 10 minutes to give this card a makeover, and the results are definitely looking good. And with all that out of the way, I hope you enjoyed today's look at the RTX 2080 Super used. I think at its price, if you can pick it up for around $200 or even lower, it's going to make for one of the best value for money GPUs you can get your hands on. Though there may be one more pressing question on your mind, and that is 8 gigabytes of VRAM going to be enough? And here's where personally, I was finding with all the games I was playing here at either 1080p or 1440p, I had absolutely no problems with the 2080 Super and its 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Furthermore, if I'm playing on my PC hardware personally, like I actually was playing with this card on Diablo 4 at ultra wide with the 2080 Super, I'm turning down particular settings to get higher FPS. And when I turn those settings down, I actually lower the VRAM requirements anyhow. So I'm hunting on this monitor for 175 Hertz in terms of the FPS. And I'm getting that when I turn the settings down and I put DLSS 2 on, and I'm getting an extremely good experience, even just for $200. So this card is an absolute winner. I think this card has a long life left in it, especially if you are capable of changing some settings in the game menus, which it's not that hard, just like hitting that like button and also dropping a comment down below where I do answer some of these occasionally in a question of the day, which we got here from Blub9217, and they ask, can I apply an overclock, then undervolt that? So with your GPU, you can do whatever you like, though whether that will work is dependent on the GPU. You can get some really good GPU silicon that comes in that can overclock slightly and then even undervolt at that particular setting. Some people do this and they do report on forums especially, but those people could be a small bunch. I personally like to drop the speeds down a little bit, then significantly drop down the voltage, and I find this gives out a really good overall better experience in terms of temperatures and power consumption. With that aside, I hope that answers that question, and I'll catch you guys in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.